Welcome back to COP27 here in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. I'm Landon, Derentz, Senior Director for the Global Energy Center at the Atlantic Council, and thrilled to keep drilling into the outcomes of COP27. We've had a week on the ground effectively, and I'm really excited now to be joined with Beck, the Senior Director for Europe at the Clean Air Task Force. Lee, welcome.
Thank you, Landon. It's an honor to welcome you here.
We're really excited to have you talk to us about a zero carbon future. You know, what is the Clean Air Task Force looking for in terms of this COP? What's a great outcome from what's going on here?
Yeah, thank you so much, Landon, and it's so great to be here as Atlantic Council colleagues. But I want to say that this is the first time Clean Air Task Force has this kind of whole pavilion approach here. Last year we co-hosted the Methane Hub, but this year, you know, looking at a world in fully crisis, the geoeconomic, geopolitical shift, we really wanted to spotlight the overlooked solutions and really bring to the center that we will need a zero carbon future. We need to really address the nexus of energy access, energy demand, growing energy demand, energy security, and climate. And so this is why we hosted this presence with 2 weeks of programming.
Well, clearly the world is in an energy crisis. So there's a lot of acute near-term need for energy, but there's a long-term need for reliable supply of energy, affordable energy as well. How do we wed these two issues, and how do we move past a near-term crisis into a long-term net zero future?
I mean, as I said earlier, we hosted this because we're looking at a world in crisis, and it's urgently necessary to look at, okay, emissions are still rising, we're 27 COPs in, and our approach isn't working. And so it's really important from our perspective to highlight regional differences. Each country or region will likely require a different set of solutions to accommodate regional differences in natural resources, in political economy. But then also, of course, we want to make sure that we're actually delivering long-term decarbonization. And so we're really answering the hard questions here.
Well, you know, one element of this COP that stood out to me is the diverse coalition of people coming together. And, you know, in particular, I'm hearing from industry and from finance that a lot of these folks, this is their first time at a COP, at least maybe most the second time. Do you see a change in the atmosphere around climate progress and the parties getting together to make change?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, we need to answer the hard questions. Emissions are still rising. There's been positive momentum, unprecedented industrial policy in the US and Europe, India. But I think what's really, really important is to remember this is the first time we're having Decarbonization Day at a COP. Oil and gas decarbonization, fertilizer, cement, steel, refineries, all of this is together account for 80% of emissions, but never really had a dedicated theme day. So I think we're moving past this idea that we need to really pick technologies for a future, but really understand that we need to bring all stakeholders to the table. And I think, you know, looking around the kind of pavilions, we're looking at 3 nuclear pavilions. So really, when we at an Atlantic Council ministerial earlier this year, somebody asked, well, is this going to be the nuclear COP? So I think this is really a paradigm shift and really, you know, sets us up for the UAE where all of this will be on the agenda.
Well, with the Clean Air Task Force having its first ever full pavilion, can you speak to maybe some of the initiatives and programming that you're moving forward at this COP?
Yeah, absolutely. So this week we've been really focused on region-centric visions. As I mentioned, you know, we need to have all technology options available to accommodate regional differences. So for example, we spotlighted Europe earlier. We talked about what's the new narrative, post-crisis narrative. Europe is scrambling for fossil fuels right now, has not achieved complete systems transformation. So in addition, of course, deindustrialization is already underway. So what's the new vision for Europe for energy security and climate? We talked about an Africa-centric vision. In Africa, energy access is the first building block for climate mitigation, but also the first line of defense for impacts of climate change the continent's already feeling. We talked about the Middle East as a supplier of zero carbon fuels in a world of reimagined fuels markets. So I think there's a lot of exciting regional discussions happening here. Tomorrow we're hosting the United States, but then I think next week we're going to zoom into some of these technology options. We're going to talk about the nexus of clean hydrogen production, low carbon hydrogen, hydrogen from nuclear, renewable hydrogen. We're going to talk about how to deploy different technologies, carbon capture and storage commercialization, regional visions and strategies for commercialization, the need to mitigate methane, which is the most important thing we can actually do to shave off warming in the near term. So really exciting programming.
Well, there's a lot on the agenda, and we're at the Atlantic Council really excited to follow along with you. We'll be here next week as well, so let's follow up, and really thank you for making the time today.
Yeah, thank you so much for being such a great partner to the Atlantic Council, and can't wait to see where we'll go next on this conversation together.